morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
As this year that seems a lot different than most rolls on without live music concerts, without rodeos in many places, the times we share when we get together to help neighbors move cattle seems even more special. And the last couple of weeks have been great for that kind of thing. And you know, when the day is done and there's a lot to be thankful for, after supper, I looked down from my chair on our deck, out facing the backyard and the garden, and on the floor was my guitar, the battery-operated bug zapper, and my trusty 410, because the gophers have been eating the food out of our garden. And doesn't take much to keep me entertained. And Baxter Black has a commentary that may relate to that.
I have observed that in every group of 30 or 40 people, however many a clan is it, a few can sing, and a few can shoot straight, and a few can draw.
Yeah, maybe 2 out of 3 there. On the Rangeland News, what do you do when water gets into your haying equipment?
If you got water in it, now you're spreading that water around inside the bearings and everything else.
And the charming Doris Daly looks at some of the strongest people in the West in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
They could drive a tractor, fix a fence, load and bale and stack and bake 6 rhubarb pies with one hand tied behind their back.
Now, back in the days when large crowds could be thrilled by a great performance, Stacy Westfall was rocketed into the spotlight after an emotional bridleless and bareback performance at the American Quarter Horse Congress, and it led to an appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres Show.
Nobody said, okay, Ellen's going to get off the horse and walk bow-legged away and ask you a question.
You'll hear Stacy talk about that whole experience and much more this week. And on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear horse training file, how a dumb mistake by the owner led to the sale of his horse falling through, and the inspiration of Stacy Westfall and Roxy after a song that really reminds us of our granddaughter Jill, who just excels in show jumping with her great horse Eddie. Here's Randy Houston.
The dream is alive in the little girl's eyes as she stands in the saddle room door. She's going for a ride on an old circle horse who can't take the miles anymore. Granddad checks her cinch one more time, ties her reins in a knot. An unlikely pair, less you should know the things that books never taught. She brings out the gentleman soft with his calloused hands, that is the way he was made. And she lets him lead, not 'cause she's weak, there's confidence in her strength. He's rawhide and leather, she's ribbons and curls. God bless the lives of cowboys and girls. Little girl grows into a young lady. Parents take her to the dance. Nobody knows, but she's got a crush on a boy from a neighboring ranch. His eyes meet hers from across the room, a night where nothing goes wrong. He takes her hand, they start to move, the beat of a slow cowboy song. She brings out the gentleman soft with his calloused hands, that is the way he was made. And she lets him lead, not 'cause she's weak, there's confidence in her strength. He's rawhide and leather, she's black dress and pearls. God bless the lives of cowboys and girls. Seems like yesterday she was a child. She takes my hand, we walk down the aisle. Am I strong enough to hear my voice say, her mother and I give her away? She brings out the gentleman soft with my calloused hands. That is the way I was made. And she lets me lead, not 'cause she's weak. There's confidence in her strength. I'm rawhide and leather, she's white dress and pearls. God bless the lives of cowboys and girls. God bless the lives of cowboys and girls.
Well, it was the American Quarter Horse Congress in 2006 when Stacy Westfall brought the huge crowd to their feet with a thrilling, emotional, bridleless and bareback reining performance. And after the video went viral, it changed her life.
Stacy would like to dedicate this ride to her dad, who went to live in heaven just 24 days ago. Thanks for teaching me to keep trying new things. Stacy Westfall. Okay, now, crowd, it's your turn to give your score for Stacy. The score for number 3353, Wizard's Baby Doll and Stacy Westfall, 239.
We were sitting around the round pen at the Chilliwack main event a while back when Stacy had a chance to talk about that experience.
That is when somebody uploaded that bareback and bridleless ride, not us because we don't have that technology, and uploaded it, and it went around the world. And so that weekend that we were gone, we got something like close to 1,000 emails. Our website kept crashing because of the number of hits, and that's what eventually led to Ellen seeing the ride. And so it had just been so... I know that sometimes when you take a leap of faith, the whole idea of it being a leap of faith is that it doesn't have this secure feeling that you know for sure what the next steps are all going to be. So I just wish that leaps of faith didn't take quite as much faith sometimes, but they sure keep working.
Right, there's that point of no return, or like climbing on a colt for the first time, swinging your leg over, it's too late to get back down, and you're either on or you're off.
It is, but if you keep both feet on the ground, you never really get anywhere with that horse. So, you know, at some point you got to take that leap of faith. You do everything in your power that you know what to do, like in the horse training analogy, and then you take that step up on. And so it's been fascinating for me to learn those rules of life through horse training, through competition, and now through business ownership.
And gosh, I enjoyed watching the bridleless reining demonstration. I mean, everybody was welled up with emotion, as everybody was, of course, in that audience. And then watching you on the Ellen DeGeneres show, and then the footage after. And has Ellen ridden much? I mean, she was okay on that.
Yeah, she was okay. She had been on just a time or two, and actually going into it, I wasn't sure that she was going to get on. And I can imagine that being in her position, people would tell you things all the time. And so I'm saying, my horse is really good enough that you can get on, and and that you'll be safe. And I wasn't completely sure whether or not she was going to do it. And we had actually done the part where you can see her come in and interview me, and I ride around and everything. And up to then, I had no idea whether or not she was getting on. And they said be prepared for anything, because when you're working with Ellen, things can go any which direction. And because she is as funny as she seems. She's just genuinely funny. And there was no reshooting or retaking anything. Everything you saw on there was a first shot thing. And I got done demonstrating, and she was talking to me and asking me a few questions. And then she said, "So I hear you're going to give me a lesson." And I said, "Sure, go ahead and jump on." And so what was amazing was that we had a ton of airtime, considering most people get a very small amount. But one of the things was, as soon as she said, I want to go ahead and get on, when she got up on, pretty much everything that she did you saw on video, because she got up on and I showed her how to back her up, how to move her forward, and how to do the first little spin where she just went one little revolution and then stopped the mare, and then the next time around when she went more and was starting to gain speed, and then she kind of trotted off.
Stacy will have more to say about Ellen DeGeneres, and there's a song I think you'll like coming up when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. After the video of Stacy Westfall's now famous bareback and bridleless reining performance went around the world, it led to a lot of things, including that appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show and a chance to get to know Ellen.
I've got a feeling that she's a pretty outgoing and adventurous kind of person, so even though she didn't have a ton of horse experience, I'm pretty sure that you could stick her in any situation and she would seem like a natural.
That line when she's walking back across the arena, how long do your legs stay that way? Was that your line or hers? I couldn't hear who.
I had no idea. She said that, and those were those things where you had no idea that they were coming. Nobody said, okay, Ellen's going to get off the horse and walk bow-legged away and ask you a question. There was no prompting for that. It was just kind of all spontaneous, and so I was just laughing when she was walking away like that. So she said that. That was funny.
And we've got, of course, the Trainers Challenge going on here, and this is I guess, about the 5th or 6th one we've been involved with, and you have done the Road to the Horse twice. And I had some real reservations when they first asked me if I'd get involved with it, because it's not the way we start colts, and that time frame and the artificial situation you put on there has potential, I think, for a lot of things to be not in the best interest of the horse. But what are your thoughts, and how was that experience at the Road to the Horse for you?
Oh, that was a big question.
Yeah, I tend to do that.
And so, my thoughts on Road to the Horse, where do we start here? When I participated in Road to the Horse in 06 and 07, I bought both horses because I was curious to see exactly what you're saying. What does this do to the horses long term? I know where I'm at with most horses at the end of 30 days and how similar they are. So I needed to try to translate that into what it's going to look like inside of 3 hours. Emotionally, I had to prepare myself to be able to potentially go in front of a crowd and say, I can't ethically and morally cross this line. I could see that line coming because I've worked with enough horses. At the end of 30 days, they're not all in the same place. And then when I went and competed, it was fun for me to bring both of the horses home and to see what I had. And what I think shocks most people is that at the end of that 3 hours of training and riding through this huge obstacle course and doing all these things, when I took the horse home, I took it apart and went back to the basics. I didn't jump on and ride off into the sunset like I had achieved this training through the seasoning that I wanted that horse to have. So I went back. And at the end of 30 days, the horse that I'd ridden through an obstacle course in 3 hours really didn't look any different than that average horse that has that 30 days, which I found fascinating.
More about that from Stacy Westfall in just a couple of minutes. But another guy that has wowed many, many crowds with his demonstrations, my neighbor Jonathan Field came over the other evening with a brand new JF free motion saddle that he wanted to try out on a different horse. So we made Cody into a model, and oh, what a beautiful piece of work it was. And that made me think of this song from Austin Whaler. It's called Brand New Leather.
From behind a cup of coffee, sitting staring out the window as the sun begins to chase the stars away. I've been sitting reminiscing about the roads I used to travel and the places I seen in my younger day. All the fever and the fury as I'd hurry down the highway, trying to make the next show down the line. How the smell of yellow rosin mixed with brand new leather, it always seems to take me back in time. From behind the chutes of Cheyenne, sitting staring at the grandstand, at the end they played, they rolled our ponies in. I saw her for a moment in that golden sea of people. I swear she looked back at me and grinned. at the Buccaneer that evening with Chancey Williams playing. We laughed and danced and talked the night away. Now the smell of her perfume that lingers on my jacket still has the same effect on me today. But time goes by so quickly, one day turns into another, and I find myself today a different man. A little older, maybe wiser, as I look back on a memory of a time in life that made me what I am. From behind a mass of papers, staring through a window, as a woman smiles, she brings the baby in. Now all I've ever done, or ever won in the arena, don't seem to amount to much compared to him. And I'm thinking it's amazing, after all the hell that I raised, today I'm holding heaven in my hands. Now the smell of baby powder mixed with life's beginning has changed me from a cowboy to a man. From behind a cup of coffee, I sit staring out the window as the sun begins to chase the stars away. I'm sitting reminiscing about the roads I used to travel and the places I seen in my younger days.
Baxter Black suggested we play some of that guy's music, Austin Wailert. And now, back to Stacy Westfall.
Can we go back a little bit to your early background, where life with horses started for you? Any entertaining childhood stories growing up? Any pranks? You come from a big family, small family?
Mom, dad, and one brother. So, my brother's a year younger than I am, and I grew up. My mom always loved horses, and when I was 6 years old, I got my first pony, and my first pony was a penny pony, which was that we bought her for a penny. She came with a saddle, a bridle, and you got her and you owned her, but if you were ever done with her, you had to give her back to the original family. So she was sort of like out on loan so that the people could always keep track of her. You really did own her, but you weren't just free to sell her anywhere. The interesting thing there was that I'd already had a broken arm from falling off my friend's pony the day before, when my parents had already had we're going to surprise them on Saturday with this pony. And on Friday I fell off and broke my arm on a friend's pony. So
how old were you then?
I was 6, and I was at a friend's house, and we used to play all kinds of strange games, and one of our favorite was to take the pony who didn't really like to go and drag her all the way to the back pasture corner and then run as fast as we could back to the barn, which in hindsight's not really great for the pony training either, because you basically were riding a runaway on the way back to the barn. And so when my friend's mom walked away and we were doing this little game, I ended up slipping off and breaking my arm. And then I got my pony, but the pony that I got was an older pony who was 16 at the time that I got her, and she had been the pony that my mom had actually learned to ride on. And then my next horse was a horse that I got, and I got the horse because my dad said, if you get straight A's, then I'll go ahead and buy you a horse. And I made him write that down, and I have that on a piece of paper like a little legal contract, and it was neat because I got the A's, and they bought me the horse. I guess in the teacher's lounge they were saying, are you kidding me? Am I going to be the teacher that doesn't give this girl at this point, who's working her butt off? If she was going to get a B+, it's going to have to be an A this time, because she's going to be devastated. And so I really do think I earned it. But anyway, it was fun, and that's the only other horse that I own. So I spent a lot of time with a small amount of horses. I had a friend who was a horse trader. I rode a lot of horses over there, but I had 2 that I really bonded with horse. And I think that helped me later in life, knowing and understanding them.
Coming up, Baxter Black talks about how everybody is good at something. Another song that's a pretty good fit today, and then the Rangeland News when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at cave painting.
Your land is a legacy. a challenge from those who tended it before you to build on their foundations. At Corteva Agriscience, we understand what it means to be the stewards of a legacy. We embrace the challenge of building on the foundation of Dow AgroSciences to maintain your trust, to bring new solutions, to help you care for your land. See how we can help build your legacy at rangeandpasture.com.
And for our Canadian listeners, just check corteva.ca, the Canadian website.
So there I was, taking a snapshot of my brother-in-law, standing in front of drawings on a cave wall. The cave was isolated and well hidden and not known to many 21st century travelers. We'd been told the paintings were thought to be centuries old, and it was easy in this lonesome place for me to imagine a band of nomadic Native Americans living in this high mountain condo. The wall motif showed humans hunting a variety of hooved, ring-tailed, and horned beasts across the rocky face, and I appreciated the sanctity of what I was witnessing, but a question kept burbling up in my mind like indigestion. Why were early painters of Western art such bad artists? The warriors' hands looked like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Their feet resembled a camera tripod. The elk, deer, or moose appeared as sawhorses with mangled TV antennae for antlers. What I assumed to be bears could easily have been armadillos, abandoned tires, old disc blades, a carpet remnant, or elephant spoor on a Tanganyika airstrip. It was puzzling to me. I have a second grader. He draws people with hands. Granted, they look like a potholder glove, but they resemble a hand much more than the cave painting. I have observed that in every group of 30 or 40 people, however many a clan is it, a few can sing, and a few can shoot straight, and a few can draw. But weren't there any cave painters who knew which way legs bent, who could depict the shape of a buffalo or an antler? Was it because they were forced to use the tar and broken limb medium? Was the lighting always bad? It's been pointed out that drawing is an art that must be refined. Realistic depiction must be learned, and I guess that must be true, though it still seems to me you could raise Frederick Remington or Norman Rockwell in the wilderness, give them a piece of charcoal, and get a more accurate representation. Shouldn't there be some inherent ability? Well, the real truth is probably more shabby. The chief's daughter always fancied herself an artist, but all she could draw was stick figures. The chief decreed that no one should draw better than her, and it stuck. So the real native artist turned to turquoise, silver, and beadwork and waited for Charlie Russell to come along and paint them realistically. Or is this something an art history major would know? This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience.
Not much can raise your stress level more than a tractor breakdown when you need it most. We've all spent hours on the phone and driving around trying to find the right parts, and that's no fun when you're missing something you need to finish the job. Here's a better way. Just go to bctractorparts.com. That's where you can find about any part for any mega tractor. If you're restoring a vintage tractor or just keeping up the maintenance on the ones you're using, you can have the parts you need in a short time. And you know what? There's some great pictures of tractor restoration projects and much more right there at bctractorparts.com. What? Oh, you don't have internet? Well, try calling Mark at 250-395-0960. And if you think that was scary, check out the video that Mark put together to go with it on our YouTube version of the show. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland news, Trinity Seeley was ranch raised in BC's Chilcotin country, and her and her husband have lived and worked on ranches from Wyoming to Montana and California, I think. And she's been a big hit at the Kamloops Cowboy Festival a couple of times. This is Trinity and Colts Become Horses.
Don't count 'em out, boys, they're coming around, said the old cow boss to the cowhand crowd. One jump, two jumps, three, maybe more. They're riding sky high when the two went for four. New rider for Stewie, new hand on the place. We heard of his name, never seen of his face. Tall and slender, a young buck was he, riding for luck on the old Double D. quick pace, waiting to see if his luck would prevail. They watched with intent the old wooden rails. They rode round and round in the old log corrals, holding on tight for 100 years bound. Many before them stepped foot in the wind. Colts became horses and boys came in with boots stuck deep in the stirrups. They rode, one hand on the rope, one digging for gold. Round and round they did run like the wind, the ghosts from the past riding within. After a while that pony subdued, his rider jumped off, said, "Boy, that'll do." He patted his neck with a give and a try. They left there that day, their look in their eye. They rode round and round in the old log corrals, holding on tight for 100 years bound. Many before them stepped foot in the wind. The colts became horses and boys became men.
The Rangeland News from the Spirit of the West, a roundup of issues and events from the world of agriculture.
At the top of page 1, it says, up until early this month, we've had more moisture than most years, and the good news is the dugouts are full and the grass is doing well, and the bad news is some meadows are too wet to get the haying equipment on them, and in some locations there's been flooding. Now, how does that affect your machinery? Well, Rod Bain is standing by with a guy who knows.
If your combine, tractor, implement, or other equipment ends up in heavy flood waters, once that item is safely retrieved, how then can you decide whether it can be cleaned and reconditioned for future use? North Carolina State University Extension expert Gary Robinson says it depends on not just the extent of damage, but also on the producer's knowledge in fixing the equipment.
A lot of them have good mechanical skills. They're going to be capable of tackling some of the things on their own, but at some point they've got to make decisions, can I do this and bring this equipment back online, or do I need to get some help?
Another factor is how long the equipment has been exposed to flood waters before the item is safely accessible. Also,
a lot of people make the mistake of immediately, okay, let me just crank it up and see if it'll run. That may not be the best thing to do, because if you got water in it, now you're spreading that water around inside the bearings and everything else.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
And speaking of water, the Milk River in southern Alberta is low and shrinking because of the usual diversion of water into the milk from the St. Mary River was eliminated when several diversion structures failed on the Montana side of the border this spring. And now the communities of Milk River and Coots have prohibited non-essential water use. Cattle feeder associations can now trace their livestock via radio frequency ID tags thanks to a pilot project conducted by the Picture Butte Feeder Cooperative. Provincial regulations were recently amended so that radio frequency ID tags are now an approved method of identifying cattle in addition to branding. And the change comes in the wake of a successful pilot project that concluded at the end of June, and there has been a major uptake by the co-op's membership due to the pilot project, with approximately 35 to 40% of the cattle being traced using the tags instead of brands. Members of the U.S. House of Representatives have passed the House Transportation Safety Act, the farm bill that will maintain the prohibition on horse processing plant development across the U.S. H.R. 1400 makes it unlawful to transport horses across state lines in double-decker trucks or trailers containing 2 or more levels stacked on top of one another. Double-decker transport and multiple-level trailers have often been used to transport horses across state lines to packing plants in Canada and Mexico. H.R. 2, containing 1,400, now moves to the U.S. Senate for consideration. August the 25th, there's a special yearling sale along with a regular cattle sale at the Kamloops yards of the BC Livestock Co-op, and then a regular cattle sale in Williams Lake August 27th and a regular sale August 14th in Vanderhoof. Get all the information and see the sale streaming live at bclivestock.bc.ca. And meanwhile, some good cattle rolling into the Innisfail auction market, and there seems to be a big demand for yearlings this year. Regular sales, of course, every Wednesday, and they'll be starting pre-sort calf sales in the fall. We'll keep you posted. Get all the information at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com or give Danny, Mark, or Dwayne a call, 1-800-710-3166. And now the final item. You know, the shopping experience is something I don't really enjoy that much, and I somehow wound up talking with an outfit that had plans to make the experience in the grocery stores way more realistic. Now, their plan was to have an automatic water mister to keep the produce fresh, and just before the water starts, you hear the sound of distant thunder and the smell of fresh rain. And when you go past the milk carton cases, you hear cows mooing and you experience the scent of fresh mown hay. And in the meat department, they have the aroma of fresh charcoal grilled steaks with onions. And when you approach the egg case, you hear hens clucking and cackling, and the air is filled with the aroma of bacon and eggs frying. And the bread counter features the tantalizing smell of fresh baked bread and cookies. Sounded really impressive, but I'll tell you, I would not want to buy toilet paper there. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up in the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, one dumb mistake cost a guy the sale of his horse, and more from Stacy Westfall when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Coming right up in the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, how to turn off a prospective buyer in a hurry by making a crucial mistake showing them your horse. First, though, okay, here's an update on the next Spirit of the West cruise, and as you have probably heard, we are making some changes. We have postponed what Billy and I are calling our farewell Spirit of the West cruise until June of 2021. Okay, Big Rig, a little banjo music, please. We still expect to have just about everything we had planned for this year in place for next year, and Jim and Karen have said, if you'd like to come, then your deposits will be held until then. We're already making plans and preparations for having the whole group start things off June 17th, 2021 with a visit to the McLennan Ranch and a concert with the Western Spirit Band. We'll have coaches to take you all from our place up the beautiful Sun Peaks for a wonderful alpine experience, and then we all head down to Vancouver. A night in the spectacular Fairmont Waterfront Hotel. Something really special planned for the next morning, and then we board Holland America's Connings Dam for a 7-day cruise up the Inside Passage to Alaska. And there'll be a lot of extra events for our group, including the famous White Pass Rail Tour. For everybody currently booked, there will be complimentary drink packages, complimentary specialty dining for one night, and shipboard gratuities will be paid for each guest. We would like to thank all of you who are planning on joining us in July and hope that you can adjust the dates and join us in 2021. We'll keep you informed with the details as they come, and as always, Megan, Jim, and Karen can give you lots of information. 1-800-530-0131.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
It's true, folks are always telling me how much they love shopping at Irvine Tack and Western Wear, but many of them live way over yonder and far away, or they're still uneasy about heading too far from home. I tell them no problem. Go to urbans.ca and shop online. It's all there. The biggest names in Western wear, oodles of saddles, and all that unique Western home decor. So giddy up and get online at urbans.ca today. Urban Tack and Western Wear,
Canada's largest Western store.
Something as simple as putting a bridle on a horse should not be a potential for disaster, but I have seen it happen. Actually, it was a horse call. A friend was looking for a horse to buy. She found one advertised in an equine publication. It was close by, so I went along to help her check it out. And there he was, a nice-looking appy, gelding, about 9 years old, standing in a big pen. The owner met us at the gate and accompanied us to the pen, and the first red flag went up. The horse was loose in the pen, but he was wearing a halter. No shank, just a halter. "Oh, he's easier to catch that way," the owner said. I bit my tongue and didn't say anything. He chased the horse around the pen, cussed a couple of times, went back and got a bucket of grain, and was finally able to grab the halter when the horse tentatively put his nose in the grain bucket. He snapped on the shank, and our friend was ready to take over and put her saddle on and try him out. "But hold on," I whispered. "Always sit back and let the owner saddle, bridle, and ride that horse first. You'll learn a lot more about the horse, and you might decide you don't even want him before you have to get on." Well, the owner led the horse to a rail fence by the tack room, and he tied the halter shank to the rail, not to the post. And then he managed to somewhat awkwardly get his saddle on the horse. And then he went to put the bridle on, and here's where things kind of fell apart. You see, he left the halter on the horse. Apparently, the horse had worn that halter most of his adult life. He left the shank tied to the rail, and with one hand on each side of an aluminum curb bit made somewhere in the Orient, he managed to bang the bit into the poor old pony's front teeth. And the horse set back on the halter shank, and the rail pulled off the post, and the horse ran for a while with that rail and a couple of big long spikes flailing around on the end of the halter shank. Well, when the wreck was finally over, the price had dropped by about half. And it turned out he actually was a pretty nice horse if you did things differently, like build enough trust that he'd willingly let you catch him without having to leave a halter on him. And always, always, always undo the halter shank before you bridle him. It's okay to drop the halter off his nose and rebuckle or tie the crown piece behind his ears, but just loop the shank over your arm as you properly put the bridle on.
And for Urban Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Every morning I go out there and the horses are waiting for me because they know they'll get their daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration, and it sure does them a lot of good. You can find out what's in it at hoffmanshorseproducts.com. The way the Canada Revenue Agency deals with ranchers and farmers has changed a lot in the last few years, and the financial decisions we make today can have a long-lasting impact on our bottom line far into the future. It really helps to have a trusted professional who really understands your situation to guide you with all your accounting requirements and your tax preparation. Having an accountant who knows the difference between a Hereford and a heifer, what a slick and backgrounding are, and that Alfalfa and Timothy are not just names from a storybook, really helps. Kathy McMillan of PMT Chartered Professional Accountants understands the intricacies of specialized programs like Agri-Stability and Agri-Invest. She understands the demands on your time and can help you spend more time doing your job and less time dealing with endless piles of paperwork. See PMTaccountants.com or call toll-free 877-383-8081. Well, I gotta tip my hat to my old pal Ivan Daines. He managed to pull it off and comply with the guidelines. The 44th annual Ivan Daines Country Music Picnic with a scaled-back version, but lots of great local country artists and good times on stage and around the fire. Just wish we could have been there. And I think that was a great job you did, Ivan, and so many folks did enjoy it, and you kept it going. And we are still hopeful that our Concert 83 show with Tom Cole and friends will be able to go ahead at the Lido in Fort St. John, September 18th and 19th. We should know for sure by next week, and in the meantime, you can call the Lido at 250-785-3011 for updates. And of course, another big part of summer is the chuck wagon races, and boy, are we missing them. And for all of you folks who work so hard at that sport, here's Kevin Lamb.
When you're coming out west, you better find yourself a rodeo. Buckle up and get your Wranglers on and get ready for one hell of a show. We've got your broncs and barrels, big bulls, steam roping and steers to wrestle. And for the main event, you'll want to see the chuck wagon teams. Horn blows, load the stove, wind it around. A stampede of hooves, hear the crowd getting loud. Find the real mud until the rider's on fire. A half mile of hell coming down to the wire. They're coming around, coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. They're coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. Hear the sound of the harness jingle as the teams canter into the ring. The lines of leather connect and the driver feel the thunder. It's a beautiful thing. It's low tech, go like heck, try to win a paycheck. All here for your entertainment. And these horses here are having some fun. And they're born to run. Horn blows, load the stove, wind it around. A stampede of hooves, hear the crowd getting loud. Find the real mud until the rider's on fire. A half mile of hell coming down to the wire. They're coming around, coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. They're coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. A driver loves his thoroughbreds. They're all part of his family. Come around by the chuck wagon barns and maybe you'll just see what I mean. Generations of drivers, outriders, cowboys and cowgirls of all ages and sizes. The kid mucking the stalls and feeding the hay. He dreams of driving one day. Horn blows, load the stove, wind it around. A stampede of hooves, hear the crowd getting loud. Find the rail mud until the rider's on fire. A half mile of hell coming down to the wire. Coming around, coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. They're coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. Chuck wagons roll. They're coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. They're coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll. They're coming around, coming around. Chuck wagons roll.
When Stacy Westfall and her husband Jeff came to the main event, we sure enjoyed both of them, and I had to ask Stacy this.
Now, is there a story to how you and Jess met, or how you got together?
I am originally from Maine, and Jesse's from Ohio. And when I went to the University of Findlay in Ohio, they allow you to go to work for a trainer. And the trainer that I went to work for down at the Quarter Horse Congress, which is in Columbus, Ohio, was the same trainer that Jesse was working for. So when I went to work for Rusty Dare for the week at Congress, I met Jesse. So every year when we come around to Congress, it's like a little memories of first meeting down there, and it was just really nice. And so we now live in Ohio, not too far from where we met, not too far from where Jesse grew up.
Have family?
And we have 3 boys. Wow. That makes for a very busy home life. I wanted to homeschool at least until all 3 of them could go to school together, because I really liked that all 3 of them being together that long, they have a really close bond. The thing that surprised me the most for feedback from people when I was participating in the Trainers Challenge stuff was that I expected most of the fans were there to see the wrecks. I expected that most fans were in the stands to see, oh, is this person going to get bucked off? What's going to happen here? Thankfully, what I get for feedback is that people say what they like is that they get to see the horses going through this. They get to see multiple approaches from multiple different trainers, the different reactions from the different horses. And so I think that overall it ends up being a very educational experience, more so than what I maybe anticipated in the beginning.
I think I just almost share the emotions that the people feel in a moment when that horse knows what is expected of him, knows he probably can do it, but it's really scary, but you'll just see him try so hard and then do it, and that breakthrough. I just get welled up when I see that, Stacy, I just see Ken McNabb stole my horse, so I got to see what he's gonna go do to it. So thank you so much for stopping by for this brief conversation. Really appreciate it, and I hope our trails cross again real soon.
Yes, I do too. Thank you so much for having me.
When Stacy and I were recording that at the round pen, Lucky, my buckskin mare, was all saddled up and just had the reins draped around her neck, and she was wandering around. And the reason she was there is because I was leading the singing with my guitar on her for Cowboy Church on Sunday morning, and Ken McNabb was doing the message. And I did get Lucky back from him, though. Anyway, coming up on this week's Classic Song of the West, a real good one, and then the charming Doris Daly in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West for our Classic Song of the West this week. The great Texas cowboy singer Craig Chambers puts his own spin on a song that Gene Autry sang in a 1942 movie of the same name, A Cowboy Serenade.
When the day is done and the western sun slides behind the hills and the campfire's made from its smoky glow, singing soft and low, comes a cowboy serenade. Nobody knows the song he's singing. There are no certain words to his refrain. He sings what his heart is saying to a tune by the wind and the rain. And he sings of love to the stars above, while the girl who waits till the roundup's made and the world is quiet as upon the night drifts a cowboy serenade. Nobody knows the song he's singing. There are no certain words to his refrain. He sings what his heart is saying to a tune by the wind and the rain. And he sings of love to the stars above, while the girl who waits till the roundup's made and the world is quiet as upon the night drifts a cowboy serenade.
I don't know too many cowboys that actually carried a trombone along on the cattle drive, but it sounds pretty good. Now, in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight, let's welcome once again Doris Daly.
Everybody's different. Diversity rules the day. Still, I slap my head in wonder at the housewives of L.A. They're bosomy and Botoxed, voluptuous of hip, and I don't understand why anybody gives a rip. They're brassy and they're bossy, over-blinged, uber-noisy, and please don't get me started on the housewives of New Jersey. A spree at Neiman Marcus and they're rolling in the clover, cleavage, like the 23rd Psalm. Their cups runneth over. Flirting with a jailbird sugar daddy millionaire, and here's my biggest question, why does anybody care? If you want me as a viewer, scrap those superficial wives and point your TV camera at the gals who have real lives. Farm wives tough as tigers, ranch wives strong and brown, and the ones I know the best, the real farm wives of my hometown. When I was just a baby, when TV was still a dream, these farm wives got together just to laugh and let off steam. Strong and tough and funny and steady as she goes, and they never shopped at Tiffany's or wore designer clothes. They could drive a tractor, fix a fence, load and bale and stack, and bake 6 rhubarb pies with one hand tied behind their back. They had soirees, they had setbacks, skies of gray and skies of blue, and the farm wives of Alberta always got each other through. They buried husbands, buried kids, shared laughter and shared tears, and they've been there for each other for more than 60 years. So when it comes to housewives, you can keep your bling and brass. It's to farm and ranch wives everywhere I raise my fluted glass, but specially to the women you won't see on TV, my mum, and all her farm pals who still inspire me.
Well, thank you so much for riding along this week, and to find the links to the YouTube version of the program, just see our website, hugh-mclennan.com. And if you enjoy this program, I'm sure you'll love Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine. You can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. We're running late, better go. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.